Peter, thanks for sitting down with me today. Good to see you.
Yeah, glad to be here. Thank you, Shawn.
Peter, can you talk a little bit about the role that breeding software plays in the plant breeding process?
Well, really the two main components are data management. So a breeder, myself, I've trained as a breeder, worked as a breeder. But there's a lot of data records from crosses, nursery populations, etc. And that all has to be managed. It all has to be linked, recorded, managed to make the breeding decisions. And the second main part is just the analysis. Analysis of variance, regression, correlation, GCA, etc. So those are the two main components, and that's crucial for any breeding program.
So how does agronomics then help plant breeders and others in the industry gain a competitive advantage?
Well, a lot of ways to answer that. One that comes right to my mind is just saving time. Some people do a lot of these things in Excel, for example, or they may have an outdated system, but our system is built so that it'll save the breeder time. One example is one of the breeders in Western Canada phoned me up one day and he said, "Dieter, I just got to tell you that it used to take me 2 weeks of working with Excel sheets to get ready for the contra season. Now I do it in 2 hours." Right. He was so excited he had to tell me. Right. That sort of thing we would love to hear. Another one is just optimizing the breeding process. One example is spatial analysis of yield trials. And I've co-authored papers in American Statistician and Crop Science. Looked at this at length. And it first came up a need for me when I was a breeder myself. But the idea is the breeder wants to select the top 5 or 6 or whatever varieties, or at least rank them correctly. But if the ranking is incorrect due to stuff in the field, field trends and that's critical. That can really make a change in your final decision. So one of our clients years ago reanalyzed 25 years worth of data and randomized block and a incomplete block design, and using our analysis, and concluded that the nearest neighbor really is the best one for their crops over 25 years. It's just compelling, That gives you an advantage, the best analysis. This all leads to the bottom line of making sure you have indeed released the best possible variety or hybrid from your breeding program. A lot of people say, well, we've been releasing hybrids and varieties for years, even using Excel or whatever, but what if it was not really the best one? It was actually a better genotype, if you had mined all the data. So one of our clients in Western Canada, I was talking to about 2 years ago, and he said, if a hybrid remains on the market one more year for us, that's $1 million extra. So if you make a better decision on which hybrid or which variety comes out of your pipeline, that could be huge. So that's a competitive advantage, because their competitors are with different hybrids, varieties coming all the time.
Right. So it does create an advantage, and AGROBASE Generation 2 is obviously a key component to your mission, shall I call it, to have software help plant breeders. Can you tell me a little bit about how does it specifically do that, and maybe even share an example of how that would fit into a plant breeding program?
Well, like I said earlier, the management, all the analysis, all kinds of analytics. So I worked as a wheat breeder, so I know that you need to make decisions on what parents are going to use in crosses. So the software can take in all the germplasm information, all the data, all the performance, and then the breeder can use some decision tools to decide on which parents in a cross. But irrespective of algorithms, the breeder still has that real good knowledge of what parents you should use. Then you make the crosses. You have a crossing block. You have to keep track of all the populations, all the genotypes that come from it. Then you self them over years. You want to link the data. So it's either endless Excel sheets or linked in one relational database that you can keep track of everything and make decisions with better confidence. If you're into double haploids, then that's a little bit of a quicker turnaround in terms of fixing the genotypes. Then you have yield trials, experimental designs, randomized block, or is it an alpha design, or is it a row column design. All those things have to be decided. So the software helps you just click, choose those, get the job done, do the analysis, make the decisions. So
sounds simple, Dieter.
Yeah, but there's a lot that goes on. And then we've got hybrid wheat breeders in India who have isolation nurseries, and they got GCA and SCA, and it goes on. But all those different experimental designs, mating designs, all the tools are there for breeders to get the job done, and to follow the breeding program. That's really the key thing.
Your AGROBASE Generation 2 has 25 plus years of expertise and knowledge built into it. Can you talk a little bit about that development process and how it's gotten agronomics and AGROBASE to where it is today?
Well, it's important that we listen to the clients. So from the beginning, I know as a breeder, I knew a lot of the functions and tools that need to be in a system like this. But then as I did training courses around the world, many continents, talking to many breeders, different crops, I began to get more of an idea of the additional tools that need to be in there. Even breeders of the same crop sometimes do things a bit differently, So we had to make the system flexible, customizable, and that sort of thing. Also support. So a support request comes in, somebody needs help. We look at it, is the help system, does it need more information? Do we look at what the person is trying to do? And that feeds into the development process. So that's kind of a circle. We listen to our clients, and as we help them, we continue to put in more tools. So forage breeders, for example, came early in the game and said, well, we have many cuttings over many years, so we built a whole perennial system in the database. Does that. Then later on, some people said, well, we want to do mixed model analysis in R, for example, so we have links to R. So that's all listen to the client, and that's... Then I was with a company in France demoing the software, and when I was done, one of the breeders said, this looks just like a system that a breeder would write, because all the tools are in there. It's kind of the way the breeder thinks. So
probably the biggest compliment you can ever get.
Yeah, exactly. We can be in the mind of the breeder because we know it. We have 2 plant breeders on staff with PhD, and some of the developers have an agronomy background. So that has really helped to develop that system. But again, all the time listening to our clients with a diversity of crops and different ways of doing things.
Right.
And that's been built into the system.
Excellent. So Dieter, in lots of software environments, utilizing the internet with a cloud-based solution is a key focal point in this day and age today. Can you talk a little bit about how AGROBASE fits into that concept?
Well, we have released now AGROBASE Cloud, which is our way of deploying AGROBASE on data centers around the world. So some of our users, mostly smaller companies, have said, well, we really don't want to get into SQL, the SQL Server database, which is our backend database. We don't want to become experts in managing it. If you guys can install it for us, we'd prefer that. So we do the installation. We know all the SQL Server stuff to get it going. We do the backups, all the new versions, all that sort of thing. And the user doesn't have to worry about servers and that. Just in the last 6 months, 3 of our clients had a hard disk crash, 1 on a server, whole thing gone. Unfortunately, they didn't do a backup for quite a while. So now they're saying, we'd really like to go to the cloud. So even though you think today, hard disk doesn't really go, it could happen. So with redundancy and backups on a data center, we can give the client a lot more security of the data. So all those services we put together. At the end of the day, the breeder should be doing breeding, and the other people really shouldn't have to be worrying about those sorts of things. So we assist the clients so they can get on to doing what they do best.
Very pointed question for you. How would you rank your customer service at Agronomix?
Well, I would rank it based on what I'm told from our clients. And a lot of them do say very positive things. One breeder in India, I think it was just about a year ago, in one email says, your support is, and he used the term supersonic. Just a few weeks ago in Australia, I happened to be able to respond to something that came up, off hours, and the person said, this is awesome, I didn't expect this. And we have another fairly large new client in North America. They said, all things considered, it's because you guys were very fast in support, responded to all our questions, and that's what we continue to do. So that's the feedback I get, and it's critical. For a seed company to have a plant breeding software where in which they entrust all their data is no small thing. This is mission critical. So support is a big thing that we do because we realize it's indeed very important.
So the next question as it relates to support, how customizable is AGROBASE 2?
It's fairly customizable. Because we deal with different crops, like one company uses our system, we have I think 15 or 16 different crops. So each crop is going to have different traits. So you can define those individually on your own. And simple things like reports, labels, all that stuff, you can design your own reports. You can totally customize it to do what you want. Now, things like pedigrees, how genotypes are named, it's all over the map. After 25 years of trading breeders and talking with them, I've just about seen everything. So we have integrated an entire method or a naming tool with quite an interface, so you can just do about anything that you want. So all that's been built in. And for clients that it's not enough, we actually can do some custom programming. So we're just working with a client now, just finishing up a project for them. So we've been able to add something to AGROBASE that was not there that they have a peculiar need for.
Does the support and implementation, is it affected by whether there's customization involved in the program?
Well, there will be maybe sometimes a little different support for what's been customized and built in. But the implementation, whether there's no extra programming or it is just, shall we say, a usual user that's now using the flexibility in the software, we first do a needs assessment. We say, okay, what crop is it? Because I know as a breeder, if it's sorghum or sunflower, that's quite a bit more demanding than peas and lentils. It just is because of the nature of the crop, how the breeding system works. So we look at the crop, specific needs, spend a lot of time dialoguing, and then we say, okay, where's your data now? What shape is it in? Is it Excel sheets or where is it? So that we provide assistance in importing it, advising the best strategies, and then how to set up the database. And then there's training. Right? AGROBASE is not a simple system. It's all this input from 25 years. There's some complexity. So we have 125 or so right now online tutorials designed specifically on our website for our clients, and they're used around the world. We have almost 1,000 globally individuals using that. And then we do customizable training. So what we like to do is come in, do a training course for a client seed company, even using their data, that we've already imported ahead of time and work with. So all those things, because we want our clients to be using the software effectively. That's important to us. We don't want to just take the money and run. We hate that concept. We want to be sure they're using well. And we will send emails saying, how's it going? Can we help?
Checking in.
We do that. We do that. There's a lot of after-sales support.
Excellent. Technology and software are going to continue to change. I'm going to ask you to look into your little crystal ball and tell me what's next. What do we see coming? What gets you excited at Agronomix?
A number of things. Some we're still pondering, still developing. I think the software languages keep changing. It used to be all like a procedural-oriented code that I grew up with, and I wrote all the code in the original days. And now I've got a whole team that does this all the time. So the one push is to use some of the more recent .NET tools, and rapidly building that into a new version in the future. Everybody's got some new thing, but that'll be one. But at the same time, incorporating all the very practical tools and procedures and features that breeders really need, whether it's blueberry or lentils or chickpeas or maize or sorghum, whatever, the whole range of crops. I'm going to build that in. Another one is we want to expand its use because it has a lot of visual capabilities. I think it's just a way to go. So those are, and all this molecular marker. We've held back a bit on just putting in piles of tools because that whole field is changing rapidly. Every conference I go to, people say, well, this analysis used to be the important one, now it's shifted to something else. So we're zeroing in on some of the practical tools for working with that kind of data that we think, long-term won't change that much. but the underlying genomic analysis keeps changing all the time.
To see you marrying together two high-tech components of our business, it's impressive to see, quite frankly, Dieter. And congratulations on AGROBASE 2, exciting launch. And I look forward to talking to you soon.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, some people look at my breeding background and my computer background and say, well, I'm hybrid.
Right? Nice. Well played.
Yeah.
Well played.
Yeah.
Thanks very much, Dieter.
Thank you, Shawn.